Okay, so we have used 3 of the 4 different types of files in Inventor. We did part files to build the individual parts. We used an assembly file to take those part files and make an assembly. And then it was a presentation file that we used to make our exploded view. And so the next step then is drawing file. We're going to use each of these to put onto the drawings. If you are using the desktop computer, there is a template specifically for drawing files that I already loaded, so you can use that template. For those using the ThinkPad, I sent you this template out this morning through the LMS. So in the LMS, if you go to the inbox, there should be an attachment from me, and it's our drawing template. So the first thing I want to do is go over the process of how to load that as a template on your ThinkPad as well. So download the file from the LMS. It's going to look something like this. And we're using this because of the fact that it's formatted to fit an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, whereas the standard drawing templates in Inventor are like size C sheets of paper, which is very large. So once this is pulled up, what you're going to do is go to the application icon. I'm going to hover over File and then Save As, Save Copy As Template. And with the template then, it's going to select the template folder automatically, so don't navigate out of that. This is exactly where it needs to be saved. I already have a copy, so I'm not going to save it again. But you would hit Save, and it would put a copy of that in your templates folder. To check that it worked, I want to have you close out this file. And then when I click on New, that should be an option now as part of the drawings. And if you select that, you're going to get this prompted entry box. And this is basically information that's going to populate or go directly on to the title block. So I'm going to have you guys go ahead and fill that in for each of the sheets that we do. So for the title, our first sheet is going to be our assembled cube. You can put your name on the drawing here. The scale for this first one is full scale, so I'm going to do 1:1 or full scale. This is the first of 7 sheets within this set of drawings. And then today's date is the 27th. Once I hit OK, it's going to add that information directly onto my title block. If I make a mistake on this, I spell something incorrectly, I get the date wrong, or I change the scale after the fact, you can edit this information by going back in the browser to your title block, the little plus sign, and I can edit the field text and it brings that back up. So if I need to make a change, you can do that on there. Okay, so this first sheet is going to be our assembled cube. To place anything on a drawing sheet, I use the base function. Whether it's an assembly view, whether it's an exploded view, whether it's a part file, I'm going to use base. I'm going to navigate and find my puzzle cube, and open. It previews what that's going to look like on the sheet. We want an isometric view of our cube. So I want to see the top, front, and right view of this cube. I'm going to set my scale to 1, and I want to make sure that this button is checked or turned on so that it's shaded and the color stays on my cube. I'm going to justify this to the left-hand side of my sheet. I'm going to do this process again because on this first one I got the top, front, right of the object. For the next one, instead of doing the top, front, right, I want to get back, bottom, left. Again, this is going to be full scale and shaded, and this one's going to be justified to the left on here. So now I have the 6 views of my object, top, front, right, back, bottom, left, all as isometric views. This sheet is done, so I'm going to click New Sheet to start a new drawing. Again, prompted entry, this will be exploded cube. The scale for this one is probably going to be a little bit smaller, like 3/4 scale to get it to fit on the sheet. This is going to be sheet number 2 of 7, and then again the date. I do want you to put your name and the date. I'm just skipping it to save a little bit of time. Notice that I have a blank sheet. I didn't lose any information on my original drawing. It's all still here. It's just kind of grayed out, and if I wanted to go back to that, I could simply double-click on sheet 1, and that information is still there. So working on sheet 2 then, we're going to do our exploded cube next. Again, I click on base. I'm going to look for the file. Notice that my assembly is the only thing that shows up here. And the reason for that is that it's only looking for assembly files as file types. If I change this to Inventor files, it'll give me more options. So like I can then search for a presentation file. This also needs to be an isometric view. I'll do the scale for this at 3/4 of an inch. And I want it to be shaded. This is going to get justified again to the left on the sheet. And And we're doing that so that we can add a parts list and balloons to this drawing as well. So this is at 3/4 scale, it's fully shaded, and it's our presentation view. If I go on my annotations tab, I can pull up the parts list. Parts list is like if you think about IKEA furniture, the instructions you get to put that together, it's going to identify and label each of the parts so that you know what is in this assembly. I'm going to select the file that this is going to be based on. So I'm selecting my puzzle cube exploded view. Hit OK, OK, and I'm going to justify this to the top right-hand corner. And you'll notice when you're doing this that it kind of snaps to the title block when you get close, and that's what I like to do, and I'll click. Now, the description here is completely blank, so it's kind of useless. We can take this out, and when we do that, our parts list will no longer be overlapping the actual parts. To do that, I simply double-click on the parts list. The first button is the column chooser. I will select the description, and then remove that from my parts list and hit OK. When I do that, it fits a lot better on my drawing sheet. Next step then is to add the balloons to each of these drawings. So I click on balloon, I select the part, and then I click, and I like to add a little straight segment to that as well. Click again, and then enter to complete. Okay. This process needs to be repeated for each of the 5 parts because of the fact that all the parts are unique. None of them are exactly the same. If I were doing a toy and it had the same screw used over and over again, I would just identify one with balloon, and then the parts list itself would identify, okay, there's 8 of this type of screw, but you don't need to add a balloon to all of them. So for your drawings that you do, we're going to add 1 balloon for each of the 5 parts. That's it for this sheet. I can move on to the next sheet. And then sheets number 3 through 7 are going to be multi-view drawings for each of our parts. So I'm going to title this multi-view blue part. The scale again will be back to full scale, 1:1. This is sheet 3 of 7. You'll repeat that same process for each of those sheets. Again, I click base as my starting point. I'm going to search for my blue part file. Now, the placement of multi-view drawings is critical. It's always going to be based on our front view. And although this view cube is telling me that this is the front of the object, this may not be the best front view for the way that you built your part. So we may have to rotate it around to get the best front view. Remember, when we're thinking about the front view, we're looking for greatest overall dimension, most natural position, shows the best contour or shape description of your object, fewest hidden lines. And so we're looking for that when we identify the front view. For mine, it so happens that this is the best front view, and so I'm going to leave it here. And I'm going to project out each of the other views based on the front. So I can project out the top, the right, and the isometric view. When I'm done, I can right-click and hit OK. I'm going to move this around. I don't think that I changed the scale. I probably should have. So I'm going to right-click on my front view, edit the view, change my scale back to full scale, 1:1, hit OK. I'm going to edit my isometric view, make sure that scale is also full scale, and then add the shading on. I like to leave the coloring on the isometric view, but not necessarily the top, front, and right view because we'll be adding dimensions. This process gets repeated for the next 5 sheets, so each of the 5 parts will have its own multi-view drawing. Again, make sure you're identifying the best front view, and when you're done, just save the drawing file. We will go back and add dimensions to this, but we're not quite ready to do that yet. So you're done with this part of the process once you have all 7 sheets and you save that drawing file.